Just 300 kilometers to the northwest from here is Chernobyl, while 12,000 kilometers in this direction has been happening something of a similar scale of disaster. Many times I've heard Australia called the green continent, which confused me as a kid. Reddish or yellowish deserts occupy a third of the continent. But has it always been so? I recall watching a documentary about Australia many years ago, and I clearly remember one line that went like, "The aborigines cannot pass by dry grass without setting it afire." And that this way they might have turned the continent's interiors into such a barren place we see now. And so my brain took this notion through all the years that the indigenous Australians are to blame for the modern state of Australian nature. Turned out, that's bullshit. In a book, The Biggest Estate on Earth, there is collected evidence on how the aborigines actually treated their soil. They did not turn to ashes every dead straw they stumbled upon. In fact, they had a sophisticated system of taking care of the land, part of which were so-called cool fires or cultural burn-ins. When the first Europeans arrived on the continent, they expected to see an untrodden terra nullius, but instead they stepped on something described in the journals as Gentleman Park. The country gave the impression of being looked after, which reminded the explorers of such neat places from the civilized world. Doesn't it seem odd to you that the people who have lived there for at least 50,000 years without developing any sort of culture beyond just painting on rocks and hunting-gathering skills? 50,000 years. Just try to comprehend the number. You can't. The Kansai people from Africa are another oldest ethnic group of the planet. They used to dominate the entire sub-Saharan Africa, but they were supplanted by the Bantu people. Unlike the Kansai, Australians had the entire continent in their possession uninterruptedly for almost forever. The people did not give in to the Australian nature, nor destroyed it, but learned to be its hosts. They basically turned the entire continent into a single huge estate. The territory was maintained so everyone would benefit: plants, animals, and the humans. Strategic, controllable fires were applied to unload an area from dried out vegetation without destroying the trunks and roots. The latter is what the big wildfires do, but the small, controllable burn-ins are called to prevent.
Fires will not rage out of control, and so the country will be cleansed but not devastated.
Unmanaged fuel loads basically turned Australia into the biggest use in the world. And it's a matter of time when an unlucky mix of conditions lights it up. Some activists claim that fire in any form is hurting the nature, and some say that controllable burn-ins are underused, which may have led to such dangerous amounts of fuel across the country. Different ecosystems may or may not need fire. Some are evolutionarily adjusted to it and even have to get burned once in a while, and some aren't and don't. For instance, where I live. In hot and dry countries, fire is often part of natural cycles, and that'd be no issue if climate was constant. With the current rate of change of precipitation and temperature regimes, even the toughest ecosystems might hit their breaking point. So what caused the recent Australian bushfires? 3 main reasons were defined: extreme weather conditions, enormous fuel loads, and human factor. And everyone seems to put accent on what fits their bias or agenda. At least that's what I noticed while researching the topic. I almost fell for blaming arson alone, which role turned out to be exaggerated by some media. So in my humble amateur opinion, based on a dozen sources and my limited competence as a teacher of geography, the situation could be an unfortunate overlap of weather and negligence with a sprinkle of hooliganism. Climate change is happening. Institutions can be careless, and there are assholes out there. What is for sure is that it's a big tragedy for both the Australian people and nature, and the planet overall. So, do what's in your power to support those who suffered, and keep your mind cool towards media, regardless how ironic that might sound.